You're going to ask questions?
Yeah, we will.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah, we
Christie,
will.
all right?
What do you want to do?
We'll ask you a
We'll ask you a question.
Rolling.
Okay.
Speed.
Yeah.
Mr. Sayen, what about this problem that if these engineers become pilots, have to become pilots, some of them will lose their jobs?
This is completely, absolutely untrue. It's never been advocated by by any airline or by the government in any of its decisions on the problem or by my association. This is pure propaganda that's been put out by the leadership of this union to try and mislead their membership and the public.
Mr. Sayen, is the Airline Pilots Association doing anything to help or hinder this other organization, the Engineers Union?
Well, I don't know what you're saying here. I don't know what this question
Well, you've been
is.
in favor of one union. You do not want two unions representing these people.
Well, depends on what you're talking about. There are 47 airlines in the United States, and they use different sets of crew complement. I don't think these.
Well, I'm asking you this. Do you support this strike?
No, of course we don't support the strike. This is an illegal strike. This strike is not against the airlines. This strike is against the United States government. This strike arose out of an issue that was raised on United Airlines, in which after 14 months of hearings and 5,000 pages of transcript, the government board made a decision that the people should be grouped for craft and class purposes together on United Airlines. It's significant here that United Airlines is not on strike. The question being raised here is raised by flight engineers on 6 other airlines who do not know whether they've been affected by this decision or not, but their strike is against the United States government trying to force a reversal of a government decision. The strike has been enjoined in the federal courts and is presently being carried on in defiance of the law of this country.
Basically, the Flight Engineers Union says that you're trying to absorb the flight engineers into your union, and then once you have that, a flight engineer will lose his identity. Is this true?
No, I don't think it's true at all. There's no question has ever been raised that any individual covered in the flight engineer craft and class position would be jeopardized in any way. Their jobs would be protected, the seniority would be protected, and this is, again, just propaganda that's been fed to the flight engineer membership.
Well, what's going to happen to these flight engineers who do not qualify as pilots? They are certainly going to lose their jobs, aren't they?
No, there are jobs for flight engineers who don't qualify as pilots.
At a different rate of pay.
No, they've established their own rate of pay through their own bargaining.
In other words, if a man works on a jet or in a piston aircraft, he gets the same amount?
No, they have, you're talking about something that's very complicated. You're talking about pay formulas. Pay formulas vary from aircraft to aircraft, both for pilots and engineers.
Well, Mr. Sayen, what is the position of the Airline Pilots Association on having a flight engineer in the cockpit of a jet airplane?
We've always advocated carrying an individual on a jet airplane who has a license as a flight engineer. But this may be one of the pilots or maybe somebody else.
Well, now, but aren't you also insisting that the members of the crew be a pilot? Each one have pilot training?
We've advocated that the basic crew, the basic 3-man crew on the airplane be qualified as pilots. That's right, for many reasons.
What's the theory behind this?
Well, it's a long and complicated subject, but the basic theory is that you want the people to be able to do all of the various functions required to operate an aircraft. Also, you want them so they can relieve each other, because if something happens to the captain or something happens to the co-pilot, you shouldn't have a tremendous emergency. You should have some other individual who's capable of taking over their functions. Similarly, if something happens to the individual who's got a flight engineer's license, so other people can take over his function.
How much
It's a pure
engineering
question of safety.
How much engineering background is required to be a competent flight engineer?
No engineering background as such. A flight engineer is simply a name that's been given to a license issued by the United States government, which you acquire by taking written and practical examinations. And you can qualify for these examinations with a background as a pilot, or a background as a mechanic, or with a background of neither.
In other words, an ordinary pilot can qualify in every respect to be a flight engineer.
Well, actually, the flight engineer license has been carved out of a portion of the pilot training. A flight engineer is a fraction of a pilot. The pilots are qualified to do everything the engineer does. The engineer is, if he's purely a mechanical engineer, is not qualified to do the things that pilots are. What we've advocated is that crew members should be completely qualified.
One final question. The Airline Pilots Association, and I take it, is not in sympathy with this strike.
We can't be in sympathy with an illegal action that's not a strike against the airlines, but it's a strike against the United States government to try to force the government to reverse a decision which was arrived at under due process of law.
And you don't feel you're doing anything to hurt the other union's position?
Absolutely not, and most certainly not the members. Most certainly not the members. I think these members have been completely misled.
Wouldn't you prefer one bargaining agency for both of these jobs?
We've been on record for that for many years. We think there are many advantages in having all of the flight deck crew members in one organization, yes.
You would prefer one union?
Yes, yes,
That union being the Airline Pilots Association.
yes, yes. Essentially, this job is a job which is a pilot job.
Are you taking any active steps to bring this about?
Well, for years, the AFL-CIO has advocated a merger of the two organizations, and we've stated that we were in favor of that. The Emergency Board, which heard this case in 1958, advocated there be 3 pilots in jet aircraft, and that presently employed individuals who were not pilots should be trained for that job, and we accepted that. Now, in the craft and class decision just rendered by the government on United Airlines, they said that on United Airlines, and this is the only place the issue's been raised, and United Airlines engineers are not on strike, they said that for purposes of representation, the 3 individuals in United Airlines, all their airplanes are flown with 3 people only, who are pilots. They said that they should be represented in the same organization.
Thank you.
And what is the position of the Pilots Association in regard to this current flight engineer strike?
Very interesting that the decision made here was made on United Airlines. But the United Airlines people involved are not on strike, and I assume have refused to strike. The people who are on strike don't know whether they're affected by this decision or not. Now, the proper recourse in this case is not illegal strike action, but recourse to the federal courts. If they don't like the decision of the government agency involved, they should go to the federal courts. But this decision was reached after 14 months of hearings, 5,100 pages of transcripts, 6,000 exhibits, over 14 months period. That this entire matter is being misrepresented both to the members of that organization and to the public.
Well, then you won't agree with the statement by the engineers that the Pilots Association is trying to devour them.
Well, we've advocated for many years, as has the AFL-CIO and some other people, that this industry would be better off if you had a single representing organization for flight crew members.
Or would they retain their seniority and other rights if they were absorbed into the pilots' union?
Of course, they'd be properly represented as anybody else would. But this question, in the case of the 6 airlines who are on strike at the present time, these questions haven't even been raised. There are no such questions involved in this matter.
Would they have to qualify as pilots if they became members of the Pilots Association Union?
On these airlines involved in this particular strike, there are 4 people carried on the flight deck, 3 pilots, and 1 mechanic engineer. And unless the carriers made some demand to change that situation, under the situation as it exists today, this question isn't even raised.
Then you would say that if a flight engineer became a member of your union and he was unable to fly, he was not a pilot, his job would not be jeopardized.
Those questions are not even raised in the particular dispute under consideration here. Those problems would have to be dealt with by the carriers, by the bargaining agents.